Welcome back. In a moment, we'll take a look at the appeal of extreme sports. But first, here are some other stories to keep an eye on. Ethiopia's defence minister has confirmed the release of around 2,000 people who were detained following a recent wave of anti-government violence. A state of emergency was declared earlier this month, and social media and internet access restricted after protesters called for reforms. Thailand is making preparations for the Crown Prince to ascend the throne on December 1st. The country was plunged into mourning following the death of King Porniponya Donyadei earlier this month at the age of 88. And Venezuela's embattled government has agreed to hold extended talks with opposition leaders in a bid to break the country's political crisis. A recent poll found that more than three-quarters of Venezuelans disapprove of the current president, Nicolas Maduro. Now, just how risky is too risky when it comes to sports? Well, some of these next activities have authorities so concerned they've been banned in towns and cities across the United Kingdom. But as Insight's Ty Genwright has been finding out, it's the thrill of getting hurt that's precisely the attraction in the high-stakes world of extreme sports.
They're the kind of things your parents don't want to see you doing. And it seems like our addiction to adrenaline is getting greater. Extreme sport takes in a lot of different activities and different risks. Some of them calculated, some of them crazy.
And then left foot outside your left hand. Yeah, doesn't matter where you go.
As night falls in London, a small band of urban adventurers gather.
So it's up, across and down.
Parkour is their game, and the city is their playground. Why parkour?
It's like being a big kid again. You know, when would you ever usually come and play in a playground?
Those taking part have come to find different ways to express their energy.
I just found the gym boring, really.
These are beginners. The maneuvers they're practicing are baby steps.
I think parkour really appeals to people who are not so keen on team sports. Parkour is more about your personal growth and getting better at certain skills.
Do you find it attracts some people maybe who are over-ambitious, too keen to try the big stuff first?
We do have people like that, yes. And again, that's probably the job of the coach to then step in and rein them back, give them certain challenges to work on that they find really engaging. But ultimately, we know they're in a position where they're super safe.
It seems that with these guys, regular sports just aren't exciting enough. Now, they're being really carefully instructed here. Question is, what happens when they start to set their own limits?
Glamorized in hit movies, where the professionals make it look easy, and in social media videos where the most avid fans share the greatest of their feats.
Oh, I'm impressed.
Parkour, which turns urban environments into obstacle courses, has got some urban authorities worried.
That's my boy.
No, stop recording.
Police in England shared this video of one stunt which could have ended in tragedy. Officers encouraged viewers not to take such risks.
Well, of course, no activity is risk-free, and if you have injuries or even fatalities during sports considered by some to be needlessly risky, well, then they will attract publicity. People have died performing parkour, skydiving and other extreme sports. People also die during more traditional sports like boxing, skiing and rugby. But are adrenaline junkies being lured into the riskiest of sports before they're ready? Are the risks calculated or are they reckless?
Well, this is one of the newest and deadliest extreme sports. You jump from a precipice, no parachute. Instead, your suit has wings. And in the month of August alone, at least 8 people are known to have plunged to their deaths in this way.
This is magic.
Alexander Polly was a Norwegian who shared many videos of his wingsuit jumps. In August, he live-streamed his last ever jump, which ended in tragedy. The 31-year-old died in the French Alps. The sports professionals are passionate about it, and they believe it deserves attention when things go right as well as wrong.
They talk about us when there are accidents, but they don't talk about us when we carry out beautiful jumps in the Alps or elsewhere. It's a shame because it's a magnificent sport. It's very gentle. It requires an enormous amount of preparation and enormous amount of work.
I run towards the window, I dive towards the window, the decks don't go off.
Andreas Petrides is a stunt actor who plans and executes dangerous acts in hit movies in which he's never seen.
You know, it's like anything, you know, everyone's got a little club, there's lots of little clubs all over the place, but it's making sure that all those clubs are overseen by a governing body, checked, so everyone's doing the correct syllabus and training to be at a certain standard to do it.
But how do you ensure those who take part have the skills they need? And should authorities stand by and allow people to take their lives in their own hands? These are the questions that players and rule makers still have to answer. Ty Genwright reporting for Insight.
Well, I'm joined now by Tim McMullen, who's General Manager of the Extreme Sports Channel. So you put these sort of activities on TV for us to enjoy. You know the people who do it. Why do they do it, do you think, Tim?
For a lot of people, it's a combination of factors. Certainly, you know, the adrenaline rush is important to some people, but for a lot of participants, it's really about perfecting their skills and really, you know, learning more about themselves through challenging themselves.
But the element of risk, the near-death experience, is that part of it?
I don't think anybody goes out there with the intention of getting near to death. I mean, certainly one wouldn't want to do that, and I certainly wouldn't encourage anyone to do it. But certainly, you know, an element of risk in all areas of life is something that people do enjoy.
But it's demonstrably more risky, isn't it?
Demonstrably more risky than
playing a round of golf.
It's certainly more risky. It's certainly more risky than
taking a canoe down the river.
It's certainly more risky than playing a round of golf. But when we're talking about something like base jumping, I mean, this is not something that people casually decide to do one afternoon. They're highly trained, professional athletes, and it is risky. Yes, that's certainly true.
And in terms of the audience of people who would like to watch this, which is your area, is that growing?
Absolutely. There's a growing audience for these kinds of sports, and I think that's demonstrated by the inclusion of more and more action and extreme sports in things like the Olympics.
Do you think there is an implied risk, though, that you will, by trying to meet the demand for more extreme activities or more daring, risky manoeuvres, that people will take unacceptable risks with their own lives?
I hope not, and we certainly encourage our viewers to be, you know, sensible, to take professional instruction, to wear the appropriate safety gear, and I don't think, you know, people should go around trying to imitate what they see professionals doing on screen, that's for sure.
But there is a risk of that happening, isn't there?
It's a possibility, but I think with education and certainly with, you know, the message that we put out there, it's not something that we would encourage or hope that happens.
And are you, in a sense, celebrating pushing the boundaries of human endeavour, or is this actually just another commercial enterprise where if you can get these daring people to do daring things on film, you can get the sponsors to pay for it?
I think it really is a question of progressing these sports and seeing what people can do, particularly in new areas that, you know, haven't been so well worn as something like football and rugby. So it definitely is a question of pushing on.
And of the extremes, what would you say is so far and no further? I mean, some of these jumpers, the winged suits and stuff, would you include that in your coverage, or would you say that's just simply too dangerous? I'm not going to cover that.
We do cover base jumping, but again, you know, it's extremely controlled, highly professional athletes who are doing it, and it's not something that we encourage people to go out and try themselves.
Do they have a B plan?
A B plan in the sense
like
of
a parachute?
Yes, I mean, most of them, yes, you do have a parachute, of course, because you have to stop when you stop flying.
Right, so the idea that they're literally relying on the winged suit or something like that is actually oversimplistic, is it?
It is. Well, you use the winged suit to do what they call proximity flying, which is what you might have seen in the video there, whereby you free fall, but also you glide with the winged suit, like a flying squirrel, I suppose. But then, you know, once you get to the bottom, yes, you have a parachute because you have to slow down and stop and land safely.
Who's regulating all this? Is there one body who's devising sensible plans as to what skills you need, what qualifications you might need to get, just to try to keep people safe?
Oh, absolutely. Certainly, there are professional bodies for all of these sports which encourage safety and, you know, regulation. But also, you know, there are local regulations in whichever country you would take part in it.
Yeah, but some countries regulate more lightly than others, I'd imagine, would they?
Well, that's true, but eventually, you know, you have to fall back on people behaving sensibly and you know, working safely.
What do you think is going to go next? I mean, what's the rising trend in the most watched, or the thing that's pushing the boundaries of this kind of activity, do you think?
Certainly at the moment, I think parkour is growing. You know, parkour, which we saw on the video, is growing quite rapidly. But also at the other end, at the more kind of entertainment end of things, certainly freestyle motocross, which is people doing backflips and jumps on bikes in great big arena shows. That's getting bigger and bigger.
And that sort of skill is less risky, I imagine, because all you're doing is falling off a bike then, rather than falling off a mountain.
It is less risky. I mean, there's still risk attached, but again, you know, these are professional athletes who do it for a living, so you know, it's relatively safe.
And what do you need, do you think, apart from a general physical fitness, to be able to do this? Nerves of steel, or is that a bit of a cliche?
It's a little bit of a cliche, but I think, you know, a lot of these activities, one has to control the risk and control yourself so that you're not taking unacceptable risks. So actually, you do have to be quite analytical and careful about it. And the people who are most successful are the ones who, you know, you don't see them practicing and spending thousands of hours practicing in a safe and controlled environment before you see the great stunts on the screen.
Right, the whole work has been done beforehand.
Exactly.
McMullen, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now we end with our Insight Bite, a little something that we feel you should know. And at the weekend, Hindu communities across the world celebrated Diwali, the Festival of Lights. The southern city of Karachi in Pakistan was transformed into a sea of colour as hundreds of men, women and children gathered to mark the occasion. Diwali is celebrated in honour of the Hindu goddess of wealth and prosperity, Lakshmi. It's believed she only enters homes that are clean and well lit. Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif used the festival to call for equal rights for all Pakistanis, regardless of their religious beliefs. And that's all for now. I'm Martin Stanford. That was Inside.